I know you already addressed these comments in an additional radio interview this morning, but can you explain why you don't believe your comments were race-based, and sort of just kind of your thinking, expanding on that for the Nets?
Well, because there was nothing racial about my comments, nothing whatsoever. This isn't about race, this is about riots. And I was, I have been attacked and criticized because I pushed back on the narrative that, there were thousands of armed insurrectionists, and that's just part of a small part of the 74 million Americans that voted for President Trump that also need to be suspect of being potential domestic terrorists or also potentially armed insurrectionists. It's a false narrative. And so the few of us that have pushed back on that, we get mercilessly attacked. I mean, I was quite honestly, I wasn't, I wasn't surprised, but it's still pretty shocking that it would take what I consider completely innocuous comment and turn it into, use the race card on me and, say there's some kind of racist comment involved in that. There was none.
So then what would be the fear have been if they had been the Black Lives Matter Antifa activists versus the folks we saw on January 6th?
Well, let's start calling them left-wing activists, left-wing anarchists, which we saw that group of individuals repeatedly turn peaceful protests, and I acknowledge over 7,000, according to one study, 7,000 peaceful protests, but about 570 of those turned violent, became a riot. And by the way, there were white people in there. There are all races involved in those riots. But the fact of the matter is those riots resulted in about 25 deaths, over 700 law enforcement officers being wounded, $1 to $2 billion of property damage. In my own state of Kenosha, close to 3 dozen businesses and other buildings burned to the ground. Again, that's quite the backdrop. So again, I'm just talking about the violence that sprung from those summer protests that were prompted by left-wing activists and anarchists. But even there, just like on the Capitol, it's a small percentage of the people involved in those protests that actually turned to violence. Where I'm consistent is I condemn them all. I condemn the Capitol breach immediately. Okay, I don't like lawlessness.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay. Can I ask one more question about Blue Lives Matter? I think there was one comment that you had made that the folks that out here were like very respectful of Blue Lives and patriotic members. Can you explain kind of how we reconcile those images?
So just like Director Ray talked about, the vast majority of people here were here exercising the First Amendment rights to peacefully assemble and protest. The vast majority. A smaller subset than that actually breached the Capitol. A smaller subset of that committed acts of violence. And so the vast majority of, and I personally know all kinds of Trump supporters, they respect law enforcement. It's the other side that wants to defund the police. We want to make sure that police are properly funded so they can protect themselves while they're protecting us. So the vast majority of Trump supporters respect law enforcement, would never even think about rioting or committing any kind of illegal act. Okay?
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. Thank you.